She laughed while they whispered. I sat in silence, knowing every woman at that table thought my dick didn't work. That toxic bitch told them I was impotent, a lie. So during her birthday toast, I gave them proof. I didn't raise my glass. I raised hell. The first time I heard the rumor, it came from Lindsay, one of her co-workers I barely knew. It was a Sunday afternoon. We were at a neighborhood barbecue. Lindsay had a few glasses of wine in her and leaned in too close with that pity smile people reserve for funerals and betrayals. "You're so strong, Donald," she said. "Mel told us everything. I can't imagine what that kind of diagnosis does to a man." I just stared at her. Diagnosis? Back then, I still thought Melanie was just distant. I chalked up the cold nights, the last-minute, client dinners, the turned-away kisses to stress. But standing there, spatula in hand, burger smoke in my eyes, I realized she'd been doing something far worse than cheating. She was rewriting me. Melanie didn't just sleep with someone else. She poisoned the well. She made sure every person in her circle believed that I, her loyal, overworked, exhausted husband, was broken. Less than impotent. Let me be clear, I'm not. 3 months prior, after feeling unusually fatigued, I got a full panel run by a colleague. Testosterone, thyroid, vascular, all clean. In fact, my urologist called me above baseline for my age. I kept that report in a drawer. I never thought I'd need it as ammo. But that bitch made it necessary. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to see how deep it went. How far she'd spread the story. Turns out, everywhere. Her mother stopped calling. Her friends gave me those long, slow blinks when I walked into rooms. I wasn't a man anymore, I was a tragic side character in Melanie's pity saga. It wasn't just a lie. It was an alibi. Because if I was impotent, then her affair wasn't betrayal, it was survival. And people bought it. They nodded along while she played the victim. I started watching more closely. She still texted under the covers, screen angled away. She still wore that specific perfume, the one she said made her feel young again. She still left the room to take certain calls. Once, I caught her slipping her phone into her robe before going to the bathroom. That night, while she showered, I cracked her passcode. It was the birthdate of her dead cat. I wish I were joking. Inside, texts with someone named Griffin. New name. Different from Kane, the one I knew she had history with. Griffin was clever. No nudes, no I love yous. Just enough to stay under radar. Can't wait to taste that again. He still doesn't know, poor guy. That mouth could start wars. She replied with hearts, winks, audio clips I didn't open. I wasn't ready. Instead, I forwarded them all to myself. Created a folder. Labeled it Reclamation. The plan began that night. I'd wait. I'd gather. And I'd burn her house of lies brick by brick. And I already knew the first place to strike. Her birthday party. Public. Loud. All her little soldiers in one room. I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't throw drinks. I'd raise a glass. Then drop the truth into their laps. Melanie's birthday fell on a Saturday this year. That gave her more time to plan. She booked the private room at Sycamore, overpriced, dim-lit, trendy. I covered the deposit like a good husband. Her words. Not thank you, just. Cover it. I'll handle the rest. She handled plenty. By Thursday, she'd sent out eVeets with a cutesy, Mel turns 32, header, complete with a filtered photo from our trip to Lake George. The same trip where she forgot her swimsuit and spent most of the weekend locked in the bathroom, feeling sick. I'd brought her soup. She brought Griffin on FaceTime. I wore a charcoal button-down to the party. She wore blood red. Her hair was pinned, makeup sharp, smile flawless. She looked expensive. She knew she looked expensive. That's always how it was with Melanie. Style first, substance optional. I showed up 5 minutes early. Not because I wanted to, because I knew he might. Griffin. Or worse, Kane. I still wasn't sure which snake she was bringing as her +1 behind my back. I needed eyes on the ground. She arrived alone. Which made me think she'd told him not to come. Not because she felt guilty. No, because she knew her friends would be watching. And Melanie liked to preserve appearances just long enough to implode them on her terms. The room filled fast. Her college roommate, her spin instructor, her therapist, yes, Dr. Haley, who toasted to Melanie's incredible strength last year without blinking. They all came. They hugged me like a widow. Everyone took their seats. I sat across from her. We made eye contact once, brief, sharp. Her eyes didn't flinch. The waiter poured champagne. Conversation swirled. Laughter rose. I sipped water. And then she said it. Loud enough for her side of the table. I don't know how I would have gotten through this year without my girls. Honestly, it's been rough. But, we make the best of it, right? Cue the nods. The clinks. The faux sympathy. I watched them look at her, not like a friend, like a survivor. I was the implied cause. The silent tumor in her story. She leaned in to whisper something to Lindsay again. Lindsay looked at me. Then away. That's when I knew, this wasn't careless gossip. It was orchestration. Melanie wanted this narrative. Needed it. If people saw me as defective, her affair became justified. Too bad I brought bullets. The folder was ready. Each envelope sealed, printed with each guest's name. Inside. A signed letter from my doctor. A time-stamped hormone panel. A QR code linking to a private folder of the most damning messages between her and Griffin. And one line, handwritten. Tell me again how I'm the broken one. I timed it for the toast. She stood. Glass in hand. Her smile wide, rehearsed. I just want to thank everyone who stood by me this year. Especially when. I nodded to the waiter. He started passing the envelopes down the table like menus. One by one, they opened them. One by one, their expressions shifted. Griffin's messages hit like shrapnel. His name. His words. Her replies. I watched faces fall. Forks freeze midair. Some of the women stared at her like they'd never seen her before. She kept speaking. Voice a touch thinner now. It's just been, such a... She stopped. Finally. Her eyes swept the table. At the opened letters. The growing silence. She looked at me. And for the first time that night, she flinched. The room didn't explode. It collapsed. Quiet, slow, like someone pulled the oxygen out. No one looked at her. They looked around her. Melanie stood frozen, champagne still raised. A few women glanced at their envelopes again, scanning the doctor's letter, the blood test headers, the neatly clipped messages. One muttered, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. Another slid her chair back slightly, as if catching distance from a sudden mess. She lowered her glass. What is this? Her voice cracked at the edges. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I cut my steak. Chewed. Swallowed. Lindsay reached for her envelope again, rereading the part where Griffin called Melanie insatiable at lunch while I was working back-to-back shifts. Across from me, her therapist, Dr. Haley, sat motionless, hands clasped in her lap. No more soft smiles. Just calculation. Melanie's birthday cake arrived, 10 minutes too late. The staff wheeled it in, candles lit, a stupid fondant heart on top. I never blinked. I let them sing. She blew them out. Silent. Her smile gone. Her lipstick cracked at the corner. I leaned back and watched her suffocate. That night ended fast. No one stayed for dessert. Some gave excuses, awkward hugs, a couple mumbled something about early mornings. Not one of them said, "Happy birthday." I held the door open as she walked past me into the lobby. No words. Just heels clacking faster than usual. We drove home in silence. She didn't ask why I did it. I didn't ask who Griffin was. The air between us wasn't just cold, it was dead. But that's the thing about Melanie, snakes don't die easy. They shed. By Monday, she'd switched tactics. I came home from the gym to find candles lit, my favorite chicken dish on the stove, and her in a silk robe that hadn't made an appearance in over a year. "Can we talk?" she asked, soft. Measured. I let her talk. She said it was a mistake. That she was lonely. That she never meant to hurt me. That Griffin was nothing, a dumb flirtation that got out of hand. I kept my face still. Kept the rage somewhere behind my ribcage. Then she said the part that almost made me laugh. "And you know, with your condition, I felt so unloved. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed." Condition. She doubled down. After I'd laid it bare, printed, proven, she was still pretending. I didn't raise my voice. I stood, washed my plate, and walked out. She followed me to the bedroom, but I shut the door before she could slip through. Locked it. She slept on the couch. I know because I heard her sobbing at 2 a.m. But I'd learned something important. Melanie wasn't just cheating. She was rewriting the entire marriage to suit her next chapter. She wanted to be the heroine in a sad story she created. That night, I backed up everything. I scanned the letters, the texts, recorded her new confession. I started making copies of our financials. I changed passwords. And I made a quiet call to someone I hadn't spoken to in over 2 years, Travis Granger. He used to date Melanie before me. She dumped him for being boring, her words. But he'd sent me a message the week we got married: "She spins fast, bro, hold on tight." Back then, I ignored it. Now, I was ready to hear him out. Travis picked up on the second ring. Voice unchanged, low, a little hoarse, like he'd seen too much and smoked through the rest. "Didn't think I'd hear from you, Taft." I didn't apologize. I just said, "I want to know what you meant." He exhaled. Then. "Told you. She spins fast. We met that Friday at a quiet bar off Clinton Avenue." He showed up in a scuffed leather jacket, the kind that looked like it had survived fights and breakups alike. We didn't drink much. We didn't need to. The stories flowed anyway. Melanie, it turns out, had a pattern. The same seduction, the same sabotage. She'd turn cold the moment her partner was no longer a challenge. "She collects sympathy the way some women collect jewelry," Travis said. "Wants to be adored, but pitted more." What chilled me was how familiar his version of her sounded. She'd told him he wasn't emotionally available. That he pushed her away. She cried to his friends. Told his boss he had dark moods. It lined up. Melanie doesn't cheat by accident. She builds a scaffold. Lies stacked neatly into a narrative. First comes distance, then the whisper campaign, then the poor Melanie arc, all while keeping her hands just clean enough to claim victimhood. She's a sculptor of perception. I told Travis about Griffin. He nodded, unsurprised. Said she always had a backup. Always. When I got home, she was in bed, TV on, pretending to watch. The air was tense, the kind that clings to your skin like fog. She muted the screen as I entered. "Where were you?" It wasn't a question. It was a feeler. Out. She blinked. "With who?" I didn't answer. I went to the closet. Grabbed a pillow. "Are you punishing me?" Still no answer. I headed for the guest room. That's when she snapped. "You're not even trying, Donald. You made your little scene, congratulations. Now you won't even talk to me." That word again. Scene. That's what my exposure of the truth was to her: drama. Theater. An inconvenience to her narrative. I looked at her. Quiet. Just long enough to make her shift under the blanket. I talked to Travis. That landed. Her body went still. Her lips parted, but no words came. That was the first real crack in her veneer. He remembers the same Melanie I live with now. Cold. Calculated. Addicted to being a victim. She turned her face toward the wall. I let her sit in that silence. The next day, she tried a new angle: therapy. Claimed she'd booked us a session with someone objective. Some young PhD out of Scroon Lake who specialized in healing betrayal. Her phrasing made me want to laugh. Not my betrayal, hers. That's how she framed it. But I said yes. Because I wanted to see how far she'd go. Because if she wanted an audience, I'd give her one. Our first session was on Zoom. The therapist, Dr. Leah Winthrop, had bright eyes and the soft voice of someone who'd never been lied to like this. Melanie went first. I feel abandoned. I made a mistake, yes, but Donald weaponized it. He humiliated me. Publicly. I don't even recognize the man I married. Winthrop nodded thoughtfully. Asked me to share my side. I kept it simple. She told people I was impotent. I wasn't. She cheated. Then lied. Then cried. A pause. The therapist blinked. Melanie fidgeted. Donald, Winthrop said carefully, do you think perhaps there's space here for forgiveness? That's when I knew Melanie had done it again. Found someone else to gaslight for her. I ended the session with one line. I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here for documentation. I closed the laptop. Her mouth was still open when the screen went black. There's something sacred about evidence. Cold. Unfeeling. Free of tone, tears, or twisted context. Proof doesn't lie. Melanie did. By now, the house was split into war zones. I slept in the guest room. We spoke in murmurs or not at all. She stopped cooking. I stopped pretending to be hungry. Every move she made, I logged it. The burner phone she kept in her gym bag. Logged. The fake contacts labeled Kara and Ben in her phone, both dead numbers. Logged. She got sloppy. Arrogant, even. One night, she left her iCloud logged in on the family iPad. Notifications started popping up while she was in the shower. I watched them stack like bricks. Griffin, you miss my mouth yet? Griffin, he's still being a saint. Griffin, I'm parked. 5 minutes. My pulse didn't spike. Not anymore. There's a point where betrayal stops being a wound and becomes data. I screen recorded everything. But Griffin wasn't the only thread. I dug deeper, bank statements, location history, even our shared calendar. Turns out, her work retreats lined up perfectly with Griffin's business travel. Same cities. Same weekends. I requested security footage from the hotel where I knew she stayed last month. Used my physician license to pull strings. HIPAA doesn't cover cheaters. The footage showed her in a trench coat, checking in under her maiden name. 2 hours later, Griffin joined her. Same elevator. Same room. Time-stamped. I downloaded it all. Created a folder on an encrypted drive. Labeled, Exit Fire. And then, the final insult. I found a voice memo. Buried in the iCloud archives, 3 months old. Melanie's voice. Slightly drunk. Laughing. He's sweet, but, honestly, Griffin, it's like ing a sponge. No push. No fight. Just, soft. My name was never said. But I knew that tone. That venom disguised as charm. That was the last piece I needed. Now came the setup. I contacted my lawyer. Told her everything. We'd prepared contingency papers months back, prenup clauses, infidelity triggers, financial division. But now, I had irrefutable proof. My lawyer's name is Teresa Klein, sharp, calm, surgical. She reviewed the folder in silence. When it ended, she said, "You'll walk away clean." She won't. That night, Melanie tried again. We hadn't spoken in days. She knocked on the guest room door like a tenant. I let her in. Her eyes were puffy. The robe again. This time cinched tighter. "Can we reset?" "What does that mean?" I asked. "Start over. No more secrets." The irony almost made me choke. I said nothing. She filled the silence with promises. That she'd cut Griffin off. That she was getting help. That she'd do anything. Even delete my social. Change jobs. Whatever you want. She was offering amputation to keep the infection. I nodded. Okay. She smiled, and that's when I saw it. The split. Not relief. Not love. Strategy. Melanie wasn't back because she missed me. She was circling the wagons. Trying to manage the narrative. She thought if she looked the part of the remorseful wife long enough, people would forget. She forgot I don't do memory loss. 2 days later, she got a calendar invite for a dinner at Teresa's office. I told her it was a financial check-in. She agreed. No suspicion. She picked a dress. Wore heels. Glossed her lips. I watched her prep like a woman about to charm her way out of a crime scene. But Teresa doesn't do charm. And what Melanie didn't know, the final copies of everything, letters, texts, video, were already couriered to Griffin's wife. With a note. From one betrayed spouse to another. Yours, Donald. The night of the dinner, she dressed like a trophy. Sharp black dress, heels that threatened the floorboards. Hair curled soft, like old Hollywood lies. She thought it was just a financial check-in with my lawyer. A formality. It wasn't. Teresa's office sits on the 14th floor, glass walls, cold marble, silence so thick it can file paperwork itself. Melanie clicked in like she owned the place. Smiled like nothing cracked beneath her. Teresa didn't stand. Just looked up, said. Melanie. Thank you for coming. We sat. Teresa slid a manila envelope across the table. Let's begin. Melanie opened it. Slowly. Like it might bite. Inside. A notarized copy of the dissolution draft. A clause invoking infidelity protections. A detailed breakdown of shared assets. A QR code that linked to the evidence vault. She scanned the first page. Froze. What is this? Teresa answered flat. The end of your marriage. Initiated by your husband. Supported by documented cause. Melanie looked at me. Eyes sharp. Still calculating. You said we were resetting. I didn't blink. I never said I'd forget. She scoffed. You're seriously doing this? Teresa cut in. You'll note Clause 14. Section D. Upon presentation of proof of infidelity, Donald retains primary rights to liquid assets and property division. Your continued deception, including the slanderous claims regarding medical impotence, activates reputational damages. That word landed, slander. For a second, she stopped being the vixen, the victim, the actor. She became something simpler, caught. You can't just take everything. You gave it, I said. Teresa pulled out the final sheet. A document signed by Griffin's wife, acknowledgement of receipt. She'd sent back a 2-line reply. Thank you for showing me. He's gone as of this morning. Melanie went pale. I could see it happen in real time. The reality crashing through her like ice water. The men she thought would catch her had dropped her mid-flight. She reached for water. Her hands shook. Donald, please. Don't do this. Her voice cracked for the first time. No venom now. Just the thin, raw tremor of a woman watching her mask rot off. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I leaned in. It always goes this far. You just finally ran out of audience. She broke. Right there in that sleek office, under those sterile lights, Melanie cried. Not the delicate, wounded kind. The messy kind. Mouth open. Snot pooling. The kind of breakdown that didn't earn sympathy, only silence. I let her sob. Teresa let the clock run. When she could finally breathe again, she asked. What do I do now? I stood. You sign. You leave. You stop rewriting the story. We left her in that chair. On the elevator ride down, Teresa said. You handled that like a surgeon. I didn't smile. I wasn't proud. But I was clean. By the time we reached the ground floor, my phone buzzed. A message from Griffin's wife. Just wanted to say, you're not the broken one. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Melanie was still in the apartment. But not for long. She came home to find the locks changed. I timed it for noon on a Wednesday, halfway through her shift, when she'd be far from the building and close to no one. The locksmith took less than 20 minutes. The doorman had been prepped. Her keycard was deactivated. The security desk handed her a sealed manila envelope instead. Inside, a copy of the signed dissolution agreement. Notice of terminated tenancy. A checklist of her belongings already boxed. And one short note from me. Access revoked. Consequence, not cruelty. She called 34 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. Some pleading, some furious. I listened to none of them. My lawyer had arranged for her things to be delivered to her sister's place upstate. I didn't want a scene. I wanted distance, legal, physical, emotional. Melanie had spent months weaving lies. She didn't get to unravel them in my living room. I spent that evening walking through the now quiet apartment. Everything felt cleaner. Not peaceful, not yet. But aired out. No more tension coiled in the corners. No more scent of her perfume clawing at the rugs. The bedroom, once a war zone of silence and avoidance, was mine again. I stood at the window and watched the city move beneath me, as if nothing had happened. As if a year of lies hadn't burned clean through the floorboards. That night, I slept in our bed. Alone. Free. She tried one last move the next morning. Showed up at my hospital parking lot. I spotted her before she spotted me, standing near my car, arms crossed, sunglasses on, trying to look composed. Like she still had cards to play. I approached slowly. We're not doing this here. She took off the glasses. Her eyes were swollen, but her tone was sharp again. You can't just erase me. I looked her dead in the face. You already did that. When you told them I was less of a man just to cover your affair. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. You humiliated me. I nodded. Good. Now we're even. She flinched. Is this who you are now? No. This is who I've always been. You just stopped looking. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. You'll regret this. People forget things. Forgive. I took out my phone. Opened the vault. Held up a single message. Griffins. Tell them that when you begged him to come in through the back door so you wouldn't leave a mark. She turned and walked away. Fast. That was the last time I saw her in person. Her friends went quiet. Most dropped her. A few stayed, but distantly, the kind of loyalty that survives scandal but not silence. Griffin disappeared from the map. His wife took the kids and moved out. And me. I cleaned out every file. Changed every login. Closed every shared account. Not out of fear, out of ritual. I wanted no trace of her fingerprints on my life. Melanie didn't just cheat. She tried to write me into a tragedy she could cry through. A man with no fire. No fight. Turns out, I had both. And I wasn't done yet. I waited exactly 2 weeks before sending the final letter. It was addressed to the collective, the group chat of her closest friends. The same women who clinked glasses at her birthday, who whispered about my condition behind cocktail smiles. The ones who called me strong to my face while trading gifs of Griffin in the thread. I had the screenshots. Melanie had saved their messages in her iCloud. He's like a houseplant. No use except standing around. At least she's getting it somewhere. I'd die if I had to look at that guy's face every morning. He just looks soft. I'd cheat too. Every single one of them had laughed at me. Not just believed Melanie, performed it. Turned me into a dinner party anecdote. So I gave them something new to chew on. The letter was clean, civil, methodical. I attached the same documents. The hormone panels. The footage. The text exchanges. I included the therapist transcript where Melanie said, I didn't feel loved, so I strayed, as if that justified rewriting my body into a punchline. I ended it with this. Since you were so concerned with my condition, here's the truth. I'm not broken. Just married to someone who needed me to be. She lied to you. She lied to me. Now she'll face the silence she buried me in. I sent it at noon on a Friday. Peak group chat traffic. By evening, I started getting replies. Not from her, from them. 3 women apologized. 1 admitted they'd started distancing from her already. 2 just left the thread entirely. Radio silence. The next day, Melanie posted a selfie. Black and white. Caption: growth is uncomfortable. No likes. Griffin's wife tagged me in a private story. A picture of her daughters, baking cookies. The caption read, "Freedom tastes sweet." Melanie, in her own way, finally tasted it too. Isolation. The kind that doesn't come with slamming doors or screaming matches, just a slow, echoing absence. People stopped inviting her. Conversations ended when she walked in. She'd burned bridges expecting everyone to warm their hands by the flames. No one did. Meanwhile, I filed a request with the hospital to return from my leave. Not because I needed the job, but because I missed who I was before she made me forget. I started jogging again. Got a haircut. Replaced the couch she loved. Repainted the kitchen she insisted had too much beige. Bought a speaker system. Played music loud for the first time in years. And then, the final act. A legal notification posted to her new address. Simple. You are hereby removed from all joint insurance, benefits, and accounts. Donald retains sole ownership of property and investment accounts, as per prenuptial clause B.1. I didn't sign it with spite. Just ink. She tried to call again. I didn't pick up. She emailed. You win. Is that what you wanted? I didn't reply. Because it was never about winning. It was about truth. About cutting through the fog she wrapped me in like a noose. Her stories died in the light. And the final one, the lie she fed her friends about my body, my worth, my manhood, was burned clean in the open. The apartment's quiet now. No perfume clinging to the curtains. No sound of heels pacing the kitchen floor like threats in waiting. No damp towels left on my side of the bed. Just stillness. Peace, people call it. I call it earned. The divorce finalized on a Thursday. Rainy. Fitting. My lawyer called to confirm. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Nothing left to say. Her signature came without fanfare. No message attached. Just a digital ping and a line drawn through our marriage like the final cut of a scalpel. Clean. Clinical. Cold. I boxed the last remnants of her life here, the scarves, the books she never read but used to decorate the shelves, the broken gold necklace she insisted was a gift from someone important but could never explain. I drove it to a donation center. Didn't leave a note. A week later, I got a postcard from Griffin's ex-wife. A beach in the background. 2 words written in black ink. Still standing. Same here. I didn't retaliate further. Didn't blast her online or show up to her job. That wasn't the point. Exposure isn't vengeance. It's clarity. Melanie lied. She didn't just break vows, she rewrote the shape of me in the eyes of others. And I corrected the record. That's all. She moved to a smaller place on the edge of town. Last I heard, she was rebuilding. Dating again. Probably reframing it all as trauma and toxic masculinity. She always did know how to sell the edit. I stopped needing to know the details. My life moved forward. I returned to the hospital. Long shifts. Real stakes. Honest work. The kind that leaves no room for illusions. I started seeing someone. Slowly. Quietly. No games. No whispers. She doesn't know much yet. Just that I like black coffee and don't talk about my ex-wife. One day, maybe I will. But not today. Today, I walk into my apartment. I turn on the light. I drop my keys. I breathe. and I remember what it feels like to belong in my own life again. The damage Melanie did was never about sex or betrayal, it was the erasure. The way she made me smaller in every room, until I believed I was. Until I whispered where I used to speak. She tried to make me a shadow of myself. I became a mirror instead. Held up, cold and clean. She saw what she'd done. And now? She lives with that. Not me.